about the tech industry is that there is a ton of disruption and innovation. Unfortunately, there isn't a lot of that happening on the communications end. And I am just as guilty as the next marketer as falling into the tried and true trap. As you can tell, I have a speech impediment. I stutter. And it's actually made a lot of choices for me in my own life. I chose to be a writer because I was more comfortable with the written word over the spoken word. I chose to be a freelancer because my anxiety about my speech would have me in job interviews, and I wouldn't be able to get any words out. And I chose to be silent when I knew that I could add a lot of value to the conversation. After 10 years as a writer, with about 8 of those in the business world, I have learned a thing or two about what companies think they have to do in order to get eyes on their products. They talk about social impact, hashtags, Twitter, Facebook, and of course, branding. But the problem with that word is that a lot of companies are too afraid to truly be themselves. Flaws and all. Think about it. When was the last time that you had an idea for a marketing plan and you scratched it off the list because you considered it a weakness? It probably happens pretty often, especially when you are in an early stage, tiny company and you don't have a lot of time or resources. You have to just stick with what you know. Today, I want to challenge you to abandon your strengths and explore your weaknesses. So often, weakness and doubt are considered negatives, but they aren't necessarily bad things. The Italian intellectual Eugenio Calorni said that doubt is creative because it allows you to see the world in alternative ways. What if you applied that line of thinking to your brand or your company's brand? When Forbes magazine ranks their 100 most trustworthy companies, they focus on the ones that are transparent, consistent, and open, as well as informative with their shareholders as well as their consumers. How informative is your company? And in terms of your personal brand, how informative, how open are you? I love to read, and one of my favorite authors is Haruki Murakami. He actually uses a form of weakness in his writing. Reporter Nathaniel Rich of The Atlantic says that no great writer writes as many bad sentences as Haruki does. And if you've read any of his books, then I know that you understand. His writing is compelling because of how he tells his stories. The plot jumps from reality to the supernatural, sometimes in the same sentence. It's bizarre, it's disjointed. Oftentimes it's written either choppily or long-winded, but it works. He has marketed himself by using poor sentences to his advantage. And now he's one of the most well-known writers of our time. And that's actually another great tip. Stand out by being unequivocally and imperfectly who you are. Always remember that sometimes your greatest vulnerability is also a powerful asset. Kevin Plank from Under Armour understands this. The first rule in his innovation formula is to do one thing really well. And so for the first 5 years at Under Armour, they only had one product, and it was their compression shirt. For me, it was writing. and I try to master editorial to business, and finally marketing. And it builds credibility. So once I had that under my belt, that's when I decided to branch out. For you guys, it could be devoting all of your time to one or two single. Obviously, if it's two, it's not single. Sorry about that. One or two marketing platforms, and then you can master those. And after that, you can disrupt and innovate. My disruption was speaking. When I began speaking, it's been about a year now. It was a way to break myself out of my shell. I was terrified to talk to people one-on-one, let alone in front of a large group. So once I put myself out there, my biggest fear, my strongest doubt, and my greatest vulnerability, I realized that I was connecting with people in a very real way. It's a lot easier to connect with your audience when they know that you are flawed too. Author and researcher Corinne Brown said it best. Vulnerability is the act of courage to show up and to be seen. She made the point that we are actually the most vulnerable when we are doing something courageous, like when we're starting a business or owning up to something that we did wrong at work or at home. The single biggest act of courage I've ever attempted is what I'm doing right now. Standing here in front of you and showing all of you my greatest vulnerability. And that is my speech. The reason why I am standing here is because I have chosen to embrace the fear and vulnerability. After all the time I spent trying to fit into a mold, I realized that the thing that made me different actually has a place in all types of business and even in the world at large. So what's your disruption? What terrifies you? Worries you? What makes you vulnerable? What challenges you to the point of fear? That's where your sweet spot is. That is what is going to help you to capture your target audience and to make you stand out. People are going to tell you that you have to be the best marketer or communicator to succeed. But sometimes the truth is that you need to be the most transparent one. Thank you. That's it. Did anybody have anything they wanted to ask? Questions, comments, concerns? Nothing? Okay, go ahead.
So what did you do to be able to face those fears? I know that it seems like when you hit something like that, it tends to become something that you can't get over, but how did you get over it to the point where you're here today?
I don't know if I'm ever actually going to hit over it. It's one of those things where you eventually have to make the choice to just put yourself out there. And the only way that you are going to feel empowered when it comes to conquering anything is if you actually pursue it and you actually do it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
There really is no easy, there's no easy way to do anything like this. So,
thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Well, that's it. Thank you guys for being patient, and hopefully I'll get to talk to more of you during the conference.